Hello, everybody. I'm in conversation today with Katie Rossler, and our journeys met because Katie helps many women, not only women, right? Both men
Yeah,
and women
men and women. Yeah.
manage grief. And I, of course, work with trauma. And we thought there's just so much to say about those two topics. Do they intersect? Are they together? Are they separate? What are they in essence? So we just had a fabulous conversation and we thought, why not share this? So,
I,
how are you, Katie?
I'm good, thank you. And I think this is such an important topic because we often don't realize how interconnected trauma and grief are. And we think, well, this was a trauma from 10 or 15 years ago. I should stop feeling these things about it. But it's grief work that needs to be done. So I think both of us, the work that we do is so important to, especially this year, how
Right.
we've all had a lot of grief and trauma brought back to the surface.
Mm. So, I thought maybe we should just start off with identifying or defining how we both see trauma, grief. So, for me, trauma is either something that you get in your attachment years, very, very young, or there's shock trauma, like a car accident or a violent crime in front of you, a shooting. But most of us have experienced some kind of early attachment trauma, and it shows up for us as an invisible visitor, if you like, an invisible guest, where we see, but what we do see are the symptoms. And the symptoms we tend to see are either incredible overwhelm, like if I had a cup here and I kept on pouring more and more into it, it just overflows, or numbness. I don't feel anything. And not only do we have our personal individual trauma, but there's also a collective nature to it. And the collective nature is very prominent today as we live really in a global village, I think, because just on my cell phone, I can go into what trauma is happening across the world and not
Yes.
feel anything.
Yeah.
So I think what really happens, what I see happening with my clients is that it's something that freezes in them at a certain age and then is triggered in the adult. So they become reactive rather than responsive to their environment. So reaction is just acting without thinking, and like being responsive is behaving in a responsible way when your actions are informed really by your feelings. And what we see is that we would then begin behaving like that younger part of us that hasn't been integrated, it hasn't got updates, it's just been frozen. It's almost like there was a tree and the river's flowed around it, and we look adults, we become adults, but parts of us are still frozen from that early attachment trauma. So it's happened in the past, but the impact is still today, so to speak.
Yeah, I see that with the couples that I work with, that often I call it the teenager comes back in the room. You'll see them get into a fight and then they cross their arms and they do this face and you're like, ooh, I feel like you could slam a door if you could in this moment. You're like, but it's our inner child work that has to be done because of past attachment trauma. And
Right.
it comes up heavily is triggered by relationships in the future. Yeah. And so it's quite interesting.
Right, and I
I love
love that. I
yeah.
love what you were saying about the teenager being in the room because William Ury speaks about it so beautifully. I feel that we're looking from a balcony onto a stage, and then I can say to a husband, "Oh, I see your younger version there. Oh, and I also see your dad there, and your mum." And the
Yes.
wife's like, "Why does he talk to me like this?" And I can see all those different characters, which we'd like eventually integrated rather than shunned. Let's see how we can integrate that because those are all part of your personality.
Right, right. So the way I look at grief complements that because I see grief as a journey of us letting go of how we think life should go and
Hmm.
having more acceptance for how life is. And so when we look at those attachment traumas of how some of it is things that we believe our parents how they should have acted, how they should have been. And as a marriage and family therapist, I tend to do family genograms. So literally like a family tree, but I look at it from mental health issues, trauma, things that show you why certain communication traits, why anger issues, addictions continue on in the family. Because when we have as adults, when we have an understanding of why our mom could not be that support, or our father didn't know how to love because of their own family chain, we can start to see we had expectations that should be there at 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, right? But we're not able to be realistic because of adult reasons. So it helps with that understanding of I wanted this type of dad, or I wanted this type of grandparent. I wanted this type of childhood and I did not get it. And us being able to say, okay, it has occurred, and how do we accept that life took a different turn? It had different experiences than we expected. So grief tends to be linked to death and losing a loved one. But I believe it's a bigger thing that we actually go through throughout our lives. It can be linked to a rite of passage, going off to college. Many go through grief of letting go of everything was taken care of for me. My parents were waking me up in the morning, and now I'm doing this all by myself, and I'm scared. And what if I mess up? Or becoming a mom, and we grieve missing our old the years before kids, when we could get in and out of our homes fast. So grief has a much bigger picture to me. And when it's linked to trauma, it is letting go. It's that journey of letting go of how we thought life should go. And having more, it can be a piece of forgiveness, but it's also no longer carrying the weight around of anger and bitterness and frustration, and doing the healing work, like you were talking about with the trauma, of integration, so that we can enjoy life as it comes and not have so many triggers that we get so reactive and we don't enjoy life anymore.
I love what you were saying, that grief has the element of loss, and it also can be expressed through transition. You can feel it through transition. So that your examples of going off to college or becoming a mother, there's a transition, and you've lost something and it's replaced with something else. So for some people that might be a grieving. And then when it comes to accepting the reality of who our parents were and how they parented us, there's that grief as well. I didn't get what I needed. I need to grieve that. I always say to my clients, I don't want to blame or understand your parents. I just want to see what the impact is on you. And when you mentioned the genogram, that is so beautiful, because those are patterns that are clearly passed down to us. Hurts, if you like, that are clearly passed down to us. And it's so beautiful to just look back and see, because I always say we aren't just plonked. We're born into a river, right? And so we've had many gifts that we've been given. We've also been given these hurts, and it goes back generations. And with all of that, we've been given resilience. Every generation improves on how we can manage it. And by just looking at it and saying, looking at it with someone and saying, this is how I'm showing up, and I'm not happy here, or whatever, some pain is walking with me, we can make that shift and then not pass it on, or pass it on less to our children.
Yes. That's really important to me, and what I teach with grief is how we can be more healthy in how we grieve. So the next generation, when they face whatever life challenges or whatever triggers get kicked up for them, they have more tools on how to handle it, versus going into escape addiction or any other types of addiction where you feed this hole that you believe is there, that you feel that's there, and it ends up going to the next generation, the next generation, the next generation. And the resilience piece, if I could ever figure out what happens, and we can talk about this further, what happens that we stop believing in our ability to handle anything that life brings us. We will so easily say things like, this will break us, I can't stand it anymore. I can't handle it. We talk down, we put our abilities down to handle what life can bring us. And often by doing that, we stop our grief process, we stop our trauma healing because we don't believe we can do it versus seeing ourselves as resilient, capable beings. So somewhere along the line, and I have my theories, we just stop believing that. And maybe it's because we listen to what others say around us, how they mirrored it for us. But that is one piece of the puzzle I wish, and I hope 2020 is teaching us, we can endure a lot. We actually can endure all of it, but we can endure a lot.
Because we are. This is our path. So as Byron Katie says, loving what is, this is the path. It's not that it's come in our way. This is the path that we tread, and we can see, even on a physical level, if we cut ourselves, we can heal. We do have a strong ability to heal ourselves. And what I love was what you were saying about addiction. I see them as symptoms of trauma, and we're seeing them more and more as well, not only in the individual, but on a large world scale, where there's an addiction to whatever, going on your phone, listening to the news every 5 minutes. There's so many, I can't name them all. That, to me, is symptomatic of the pain and the trauma that we don't want to have this stillness with. We don't want to have that. How do you suggest people go about healing their grief?
So one of the tools I love to use is guided meditation, because I feel like for people that can be a safe start. I do talk therapy and I do guided meditations where it's more energy work. And I find that when I do the energy work, people are more comfortable, even though at first they're like, what is this? Because they don't have to keep talking about it. Because a lot of the trauma, a lot of the grief doesn't always have words. And some of our suffering is getting stuck in trying to find the words or tell the story over and over. So, I really love guided meditations, and there's a lot of tools out there, whether you work with somebody who does grief healing or you find some online. There's some great apps for our phones, but when we allow our bodies to speak and say, I'm suffering, I'm struggling, I'm hurting, I need you to be still and pay attention to me, you start to see there's a lot of physical symptoms that start to go away, because the physical symptoms often are our bodies screaming out, hello, you're not paying attention. And our minds and bodies are so connected. And I'm amazed that we realize that in some ways, and then in other ways we deny it. No, there's no way that I'm causing this to occur. But think about burnout, think about stress, think about ulcers people get, heartburn, congestion, headaches, tension headaches. All of these are linked to emotions and thoughts we store in us and don't have healthy releases for.
Right. I love that idea of the guided meditation. And just yesterday, somebody said something very beautiful to me. She said she does a lot of guided meditation. She said you could take me to a safe place. Is there a problem? Is there a problem?
No, I was making sure we don't have any more beeps in the background. Sorry.
Okay. She was saying that you could take people to a safe place where they can always go, or you can take them back to the traumatic place. And I've seen a lot of emotion come up. And the other piece that you said, which I think is crucial, is the first thing is to be present. I'm here with you now.
Right.
I think that gives people that sense of resting.
Yeah. And it can be really uncomfortable to be still and in your body. Many people avoid that. That's why we keep our schedules busy. Why we immediately turn on the television or go to our phone, because as soon as it's quiet, and have you seen a waiting room lately? Everyone's on their phones.
Right.
You can't just sit and be quiet.
You feel kind of awkward, don't you, if you're not looking at your phone and you've got nothing,
Right. Yes, the other day my phone was dead, and I was like, well, I'm gonna sit here, and I thought, this is how it used to be.
Right.
Up until a few years ago. Why is this now? I'm the awkward one.
Exactly.
I just
Exactly.
closed my eyes and thought, I'm just going to enjoy this right now. Like it's quiet. Nobody's talking to me. They're all on their phones. But
Exactly.
it is, we are no longer comfortable with being still and, feeling
Right.
this.
And creating that space to digest or everything that's coming in.
Yes. Yes.
I want to
Yeah.
thank you, Katie. This has been a fabulous conversation, and I know we're going to offer more.
Yes, definitely.
And we'd love to hear what you have to say, or if you have questions for us, please comment. We thirst too for more wisdom and knowledge from everybody. Everybody's an expert on trauma and grief.
Yeah. It's a very subjective experience, and we can learn from you just like you can learn from us.
Exactly. Thank you so much.